We begin with the latest from the war in Ukraine. The unprecedented wave of refugees from the war is growing even bigger. Evacuations like these will likely be gaining in size and speed in the days ahead. This is a city in the Donetsk region that could soon be a battleground. It's right in the center of a potential new Russian offensive. Ukraine's deputy prime minister is urging people in eastern cities to get to safety as quickly as they can. Ukrainian officials say they will try to open 10 humanitarian corridors this morning, taking people to safety from places like this suburb of Kharkiv. So far, more than 10 million people have been forced from their homes by the war, and hundreds of thousands more could soon join them. Katie Simpson is back with us from Lviv, Ukraine this morning to lead off our coverage. Katie, good to see you. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is warning that Russian forces are preparing to launch a new offensive in the east. What are the latest developments?
The intense shelling and attacks continue, as you mentioned, focused on the east and the south of Ukraine. However, we are getting word from a top presidential advisor that Mariupol, one of the cities hardest hit by Russian forces, that at this moment it continues to hold. Russian forces, as they left their attention on Kyiv and the other Bucha and other communities in and around the capital, officials are concerned that because they pulled out of that region, they are going to redouble their efforts in the south and in the east in an attempt to gain more territory. And that is why we are seeing an urgent plea for more help from President Volodymyr Zelensky, as well as his foreign minister, who's at NATO meetings today, a series of meetings where he is pleading with his allies to send more help.
My agenda is very simple. It has only 3 items on it. It's weapons, weapons, and weapons. As weird as it may sound, but today weapons serve the purpose of peace. The deal that Ukraine is offering is fair. You give us weapons, we sacrifice our lives, and the war is contained in Ukraine. This is it.
President Volodymyr Zelensky is accusing Russia of trying to hide war crimes, accusing them of trying to hide and bury bodies as a way to avoid any sort of accountability or any kind of scrutiny on the world stage. That, of course, is going to be impossible as more journalists enter regions like Bucha and other places where some of that hardest fighting took place, has been taking place, and more atrocities continue to be discovered. One other thing I should mention, there is going to be a vote at the UN General Assembly today. Of course, another attempt to try and hold some sort of Russia to some sort of accountability. They're going to vote to kick Russia out of the Human Rights Commission, the UN Human Rights Commission, and that vote is expected to be successful.
Katie, you have been there bearing witness to so much angst and pain, and I gather you were just at a funeral for a Ukrainian soldier. What was that like?
Yeah, we're standing right beside the main church in Lviv, and I'm just going to take a quick step out of the way. You can see there are still some people who are attending this funeral that have gathered here in the street. But there were hundreds of people who came into the main church in Lviv. And one thing that sort of stood out to me is that when you walk into the building, all of the statues are covered up and protected in case there are bombings or attacks here. They're trying to preserve what they have inside that church. Many people were crying. The family of this man, he's a 55-year-old man. His name was Vasil Gorel. He was retired. He's a former police officer. He was a pensioner. And when the war broke out, he volunteered to fight. He said, I want to go, send me to the front line. He was sent to the Luhansk region, according to his family, and that is where he was shot and killed by Russian soldiers. There are funerals, of course. With war comes loss and a massive cost for the families who are making these ultimate sacrifices. And so these funerals happening here in Lviv, they're happening on a regular basis for those who are killed on the front lines. And so we saw his family follow behind his casket, a military procession through the main square here. And of course, Lviv has been a relatively safe place, but there's so much pain, so much anger, and so much anxiety here. Even though you see it looks like a bustling, busy day here. Shops are open, restaurants are open, but everyone here, there's an edge to everything.
Katie, thank you so much for joining us again today on this. Katie Simpson in Lviv, Ukraine.